Everyone, please Google Gavin Grimm. He's going to the Supreme Court in March. Hashtag Stand with Gavin.
Gavin Grimm, a Virginia teen, is fighting his school board for his right to use the bathroom that matches his gender identity.
Gavin Grimm, who is a hero to us all and so eloquent in speaking for transgender students all across this country.
For the past 2 years, Grimm has been extremely vocal in the fight against his school.
Gavin Grimm lives in religious and conservative rural Virginia, where church and football fill social calendars. Unlike the majority of boys in Gloucester, Gavin is transgender, and his adolescence has been overshadowed by a legal battle that will impact every trans student in the country.
We will not be beaten down by this administration or any. No, we won't.
Hey, Gavin. It's good to meet you. Over the last 2 years, Gavin has been fighting the Gloucester County School Board for the right to use the boys' restroom. It's a case that has gone all the way to the Supreme Court. But this is a role Gavin never asked for or expected.
What have you sacrificed to fill this role?
This case has affected my entire family. To do what I've been doing, I've sacrificed, I'd say probably a lot. In terms of my privacy, that's one of the big ones. I've sacrificed a lot of my privacy. I hope to go to school, I want to go to college, I want to have a career eventually, and I'd eventually like to be able to move on with my life in absence of this conversation. We have a parrot over here, her name's Marvina. She was Marvin, but then she laid an egg.
I was Marvin till I laid an egg.
Come on, baby. And then my pig is in there in the bathroom, that's her bedroom.
Is she gonna come out and meet us?
Oink.
Oh my God.
Good morning. She's a good girl. Look at her tail wagging all happy.
What's her name?
Esmeralda.
Esmeralda. That's so cute. So Gavin has sort of quickly become an advocate on a national level. How does that feel as the mother of a teenage son?
There's been moments that it was the hardest thing I've ever been through. Because as a mom, you want to protect your children. Mm-hmm. And in this case, I can't do this for him. Right. This is really his battle.
I had transitioned the summer before my sophomore year, and when I returned to school, I approached my principal and I said, look, this is the situation. Am I going to be respected? Can I just go ahead and use the boys' room? And he said, yeah, why not? And so for like 7 weeks, that's what I did successfully with no incidents. There was no verbal or physical altercations. After the period of 7 weeks, there was a school board meeting called, raised allegedly by a concerned member of the community. And we were not told that essentially my genitals were going to be talked about.
To combine male and females in the same bathroom, same gym room, you are opening up a door that is going to be disastrous.
My question is, where does it end?
A young man can come up and say, I'm a girl. I need to use the ladies' rooms now. And they've been lying through their teeth.
And until the child has sexual organs of that race, that child needs to be not mixed with the other children.
I drive a Mustang. I can put it in a garage full of Porsches. It'll never be a Porsche. It'll still be a Mustang. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I was absolutely horrified. And then, I felt naked. It was very invasive. It was humiliating. I felt totally stripped of my humanity.
When I see the little clips of it, I remember how I felt. Just like someone had punched me in the stomach when I heard some of that stuff. I knew a lot of those people.
After hearing from the community, the school board voted 6-1 against Gavin using the boys' restroom.
Thank you, everyone.
Afterwards, there were a lot of changes. I remember I came into class one day and I sat down and a kid immediately picked up his things and moved across the room. People who had spoken to me before then stopped speaking to me. The level of isolation went up like tenfold. My grades went down. I struggled to maintain C's in certain classes. I got so many absences. When you can't function in school in the same capacity as your peers because of an administrative rule, You absolutely cannot succeed in the same academic way as your peers can. You don't have the same opportunities, and therefore you either can't do as well, or you have to fight a lot harder to be able to do as well.
One of the speakers at Gavin's school board hearing was Pastor Ralph Van Ness. Pastor Van Ness has been one of the loudest voices of opposition in Gavin's case, and he also happens to be a security guard at Gavin's school. But his views are reflected in anti-transgender legislation around the country.
We have a situation with a young man that says they want to identify themselves as a young lady, and they go in there in the ladies' room with ill intent. Where does it end?
People who oppose trans rights are fast to vocalize their opinion, but they rarely have to face the people they preach against.
You had heard that Gavin was going to use the restroom. Why was it important to become involved at that point at school on that level?
The reason why is because of a moral and biblical, I feel, issue. God doesn't make mistakes. He creates us male and female. Then to identify with the opposite sex would mean that God doesn't know what he's doing. And so to do that is deceptive.
Why is it deceptive?
Why is it deceptive? Well, if you're using that restroom and if no one else has knowledge of it and you know that you're doing it in violation of, it's just like if you go down the road here and you commit a crime, and I know that is not the same, but that's the best analogy I can give.
Right, because it's not always a crime.
Crime's a crime, and if you do it and you try to cover it up, isn't that deceptive?
Well, what if we're talking about a place where there's not a law against it?
Well, if there's not a law against it, then what can I say? Then it goes back to the moral issue, and so I believe that it was my responsibility, not as a school employee, but as a pastor, to stand up and take a stand on what I believe is a moral issue.
As an administration, you're supposed to work as a unit to make an environment where all or as many of the students as possible feel safe and welcome and loved and supported. And when you have rules and laws in a school that actively work against these things, you can't support trans kids. When you have a law in the school that says you have to take a field trip essentially every time you want to use the bathroom, we're going to single you out, we're going to stigmatize you. These two things don't work together. They're mutually exclusive.
I pray for Gavin, I do, and so I just want that to be known as well.
Would you mind sharing what you pray for him?
I pray that she will be safe.
Do you think it could be dangerous for trans people who appear to be the sex by which they identify to use the other bathroom?
It could be.
So what is the solution for those individuals?
I can't begin to start saying what the solution is. The biggest solution for anyone is a surrender to Christ. I go back always to a moral issue.
So for trans people, in your opinion, they should follow this moral objective, which is to use the bathroom of their biological sex.
I would have to say so. Yeah. I would have to say so.
What bathroom do you think I should use?
The restroom of your biological sex.
Do you think that I would be safe if I used a men's restroom?
I couldn't begin to tell you.
Do you think that other men would be comfortable if I was in a men's restroom?
I couldn't begin to tell you.
Okay.
This could be your child. This could be your child, your sister, your brother, your niece, your nephew. I am not the only transgender student in Gloucester County, and I deserve the rights of every other human being. I'm just a human. I'm just a boy. Please consider my rights when you make your decision. Thank you very much.
After the school board made the decision that I was to be segregated from my peers, what I was not going to do is lay down and accept that I was going to be discriminated against. But I was, of course, hoping that there would be an avenue to fight back against that wasn't legal, but there just wasn't. And so that's when the decision was made to move ahead with the legal process with the ACLU.
The ACLU filed a lawsuit against the Gloucester County School Board on Gavin's behalf, arguing that Title IX, a federal law prohibiting sex discrimination by schools, protects trans students. The case climbed its way through the court system in a series of appeals that eventually ended up on the Supreme Court docket. However, justice has been delayed. In early 2017, the Trump administration rescinded an Obama-era guidance that protected trans students. And as a result, the Supreme Court dropped Gavin's case back down to a lower court, meaning that there won't be a decision until after he graduates high school.
No matter what happens, no one, not even the government, can defeat a community so full of life, color, diversity, and most importantly, love. Amen.
Bindle and Keep, a clothing making company that services specifically trans and queer people, offered to make me this suit in preparation for the Supreme Court. Obviously now we're not going to the Supreme Court, but I'm still kind of hesitant to put it on because it was like my Supreme Court suit. For trans people, there's a whole thing about how we don't feel at home in our bodies usually, but here's something made for me specifically and made ultimately because I'm a trans man. I mean, it was like battle armor, and it really helped me to know that I was going to walk in clothing that was meant for my body. We're headed out to the post office because I get like little letters and sometimes little packages. When the bad decision was handed down, that the Supreme Court wasn't taking my case anymore, I got like a ton of mail, like a huge influx of mail.
So this is the post office where your letters get sent?
Yep, I have my P.O. box here.
We're in a car because he's uncomfortable being seen in public with cameras around him, so he can maintain his privacy here. Oh my God, what did you get?
So I had a key in my box.
This is a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I do definitely get a lot of mail. And then this one, it's from Bank Street Children's Programs. Dear Gavin, I feel like I know you. My name is Esther and I'm a third grade teacher at a school in New York. My class has been studying the history of civil rights in the U.S., so over the past month, my students have been thinking about you and learning about the lives of trans youth. I will let their letters and thoughts speak for themselves, but I did want to share that when my students learned that you wouldn't be going to the Supreme Court, they cried. Oh my God. They debated whether to still send their letters to you or not, and some of them still feel nervous that these letters will make you feel sad, but ultimately we want you to have them because, quote, we still have Gavin's back forever. In love and solidarity, Esther. And then there's a bunch of letters from the students. Oh, they're third graders too. That's really cool. That's really cool.
Gavin, how does it make you feel to know that your life and your case is being discussed in a classroom where they're educating children about civil rights issues of our time?
Well, I mean, I think it's so powerful because, like, young people shape our nation. And to hear that they were so emotionally invested that they cried, that still hits me. It's just further proof that the conversation is being had and it's important and it's really hitting a really great audience and I'm really resonating as a person on a personal level with people, which is what's really, really important here. So that's really neat. I won't have this platform forever, and I really so desperately want this story to be heard by enough people that it's gonna make a difference. That's my mission, is to get education out and to let people know who trans people are. Discrimination stems from a lack of understanding and a lack of knowledge, and I think if people met trans people as people first, or learned about their stories, or saw a human face to the issue, you'd have a lot more acceptance and tolerance in the world.